then you have this little gray area in between where like, well, it's okay to kill if you're being attacked by someone, right? Like you can defend yourself, and if you kill them, then that's okay. And like, that's when you get into that gray ethical question. And I think that in this particular instance, they're arguing in favor of you can do things because war that you wouldn't normally do.
Perhaps I could use this as an excuse to go to those far-off planets with little polka-dotted people if necessary, and be able to talk about love, war, nature, God, sex, all those things that go to make up the excitement of the human condition.
I'm Captain James Kirk.
Spock.
Your move, Captain.
Jim Kirk of the Enterprise.
What's going on?
I'm James Kirk. These people are my friends and my shipmates. Leave my crew alone.
Out of the question.
How about that?
James Kirk.
It fits like a glove, Captain.
Oh, the bonehead ideas.
Gentlemen, I'm Captain James Kirk. Get out of my chair. Get out of it now.
My greetings and felicitations, Captain. So good of you and your officers to, drop in. Absolutely smashing.
My house is my house.
Or its content.
And welcome to Humanist Trek. That's the Ferengi greeting, apparently, that we've recently learned. We're trying to learn more alien greetings. Send us your alien greetings from Star Trek. It's Humanist Trek, a Star Trek podcast about the humanism in Star Trek. I'm Sarah Ray.
And I'm Allie Ashmead.
And we have some things coming up. There's a convention that we just got approval for here in Denver. So if you're in the Denver area or you can get here, it's a whole weekend long thing. It's called Galacticon 2023. I've never been, so I don't know what it's going to be like, but we are signed up for a community table, which is perfect because it was free, I think, as opposed to like being in the vendor room. And this is the thing that I think I've recognized now, having been at a few of these things set up, like, we don't really fit with the vendors.
Not really.
But we also don't really fit in like Artist Alley, where people are like drawing and doing like all kinds of artwork and shit that they're selling. Where the hell do we belong? The community table, of course. This is where fans come to like hang out with the shit that they listen to and stuff. Yeah.
And this is where we need to make sure we have the Dabo wheel. We gotta the question lady is gonna be working overtime.
Well, and I don't know how all this is gonna work either. Excuse us while we have a show meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know how all this is gonna work either, because like my family is not going to be staying at the venue because it's close enough we can drive back and forth.
Right.
And also we can't afford it.
Can we leave our stuff there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure. I would imagine.
Yeah,
I'm
not gonna stay there either. It's Thanksgiving,
right?
Too.
But also, I don't know what my wife and kids are gonna be doing.
Yeah.
Like, are they gonna want to come? Are they not? Like, maybe you'll meet Becca, maybe you won't. I don't know. I have no idea. We haven't. Again, this is the show meeting where we are discussing our involvement in Galacticon.
Maybe they go on Friday and see how it is, and then maybe they don't come back on Saturday or Sunday if they hate it.
Well, because like the kids get bored real easily, especially at this kind of stuff, because it's not their jam. I might be able to get my son to like do our sales for us. Like if he kind of into that, like he wants to take people's money.
Yeah.
So I might be able to get him to do that, but the little one would be bored out of her gourd, and probably Becca too. And
when kids are bored,
they get into trouble, and that distracts me from doing the thing that we're there to do, which is meet people and talk to people. So that's November 24th through the 26th. Since none of us will be celebrating Thanksgiving because fuck the colonizers, come on down to the Denver Marriott Tech Center and hang out with us at Galacticon. We will have a community table set up, and I presume we're able to sell our shit, so we'll probably have our shirts and all of that good stuff. I need to relabel the Dabo wheel because I think we're going to do it a different way. Also, the organizers of Galacticon are apparently trying to fill some programming slots because the approval email came through, and then another email came through after that was like, hey, so you're approved, you're going to be at the community, whatever. We sure would like you to apply to give a talk.
Oh, God.
To do a panel.
So, listeners, we need your help because I literally lost my shit when Sarah said that. I'm like, and I started panicking. I'm like, oh my God. So, what kind of things would you like to hear us talk about? I mean, obviously it's going to be Star Trek, but it's like, what's the subject? Like, what do we do?
I think we should do humanism in Star Trek. And this could be the seed. Speaking of seeding things.
Are we seeding?
This could be the seed planted of what eventually becomes a touring, traveling sort of, if your organization wants to have a talk on Star Trek and humanism, this may be kind of the foundations for that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking we just, because here's what my hope is. My hope, first of all 12 of our listeners don't live anywhere near here. So they're unlikely to come and meet us, right? So I think we'll be playing to a new audience. We'll have people come by who are Star Trek fans and are like, what the hell is this all about? And then we kind of remember we talked in the beginning about that Venn diagram of who our listeners are and that we get to introduce people to humanism in a lot of ways. So I think maybe that's the angle. I think maybe that's who our audience is going to be. They're going to be people who are into Star Trek, and we can introduce them to
what is humanism, and then tell them what it is, and then we start talking about the episodes.
We find, we can go back through our notes and pick out some of our favorite like episodes that really touched on ethics and those big questions and where did God, is God a traveler from what we think of God, a traveler from an alien planet, shit like that.
Adonias or something, or
Yeah, I think that's what we do. I think that'd be fun. But I'm open to ideas. If anybody has anything better than that, please, dear God, help us.
Yeah. I don't want to have dead air. I don't want to. I want to know exactly what I'm going to say, what we're going to talk about, and anticipate any questions that people might have.
God forbid we have an alley incident in the middle of our talk. That's all I got. That's as close as I can get us to Star Trek: The Original Series, Season 3, Episode 2, the Enterprise incident.
Sir, contact with an object. It's moving toward us.
No visual contact yet.
Deflectors, full intensity.
Mr. Sulu, yes, Captain. Anything on your scanners?
It's coming at light speed.
Collision course. Visual contact.
Anything, over?
All wavelengths dominated by ionization effects, sir.
All engines full stop.
This episode opens with McCoy's medical log. He's concerned about the captain. He seems tense and irritable. And then to demonstrate these facts, we get some interactions on the bridge where Chekhov is giving a report and Kirk basically tells him his work is shit because it doesn't match with his own evaluations.
So messed up.
Then he asks Spock to do some scans and Spock's like, Jesus, Jim, I've done these scans 17 times already. And Kirk's like, yeah, well, those were in the past. So scan again. Spock scans again, but nothing's changed. So something's going on with Kirk. He's just kind of being a dick to everybody.
He's resisted McCoy's attempt to do a psychological profile.
That's a Star Trek trope, isn't it? The captain being unwilling to undergo any kind of examination.
Yeah. And what kind of psychological profile is McCoy going to give anyway?
Out of nowhere, Kirk gives Sulu an order to change course. And Sulu's like, that'll take us directly into the Romulan neutral zone. Oh my.
Oh my gosh, you did that so well. Kirk says, yes, I know that, but he wants Sulu to do it anyway. So Sulu goes ahead and does what he's been ordered to do.
While this is going on, Scotty comes onto the bridge in the background and sneaks over to Uhura. And he's like, what the fuck, lass? When did Starfleet send an order to go into the DMZ?
I know, right? They're whispering like two kids in class.
Yes. But there's been no communication from Starfleet that Uhura is... Anything that comes into the ship goes through her, right? She's the operator.
One ringy-dingy. Two ringy-dingies. A gracious good afternoon. Have I reached the party to whom I am speaking?
But she confirms there was no order from Starfleet to go into the neutral zone in Romulan space.
So they're whispering in the background, and Kirk overhears them, and he's like, passing notes, Miss Uhura and Mr. Scott? Care to stand up and read that note for the whole class?
Just then, on the screen, they see a ship. And Scotty says that's a Klingon ship, but it shouldn't be in this area. Spock's got intelligence reports that Romulans are now using Klingon warbirds. So, yeah.
How is
Yeah.
that a thing?
Do they not have their own ships? And why are they
do,
stealing?
but does this so there is a Romulan warbird
Mm-hmm.
and a Klingon bird of prey, and then there's a Romulan bird of prey. Does this maybe explain like how two different species came up with the bird of prey, like the same name for a ship or something?
A bird. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, red alert sounds, battle stations, but then a second ship appears and then a third. So they're suddenly surrounded by these Klingon-like Romulan ships.
Yes, there were two Klingon ships and then one Romulan ship design. So
I don't know.
So in that shot, there were the two different designs. After the theme, Kirk orders a message to Starfleet, but Uhura's got a call on the switchboard from the Romulan ship. On the phone is Sub-Commander Tal, and he knows all about Kirk and the Enterprise and demands that they surrender or be destroyed. And Kirk puts him on hold and says, well, they must want something, otherwise they would have just destroyed us already. It must be the Enterprise they want. So he takes him back off hold, and he tries to take the Enterprise off the table. He says, if you so much think about boarding us, I'll just blow up the damn ship. No!
So Tal goes offline. He puts his hand on the receiver and he goes on mute and he talks with his commander. And then he comes back and he says, okay, we'll give you an hour to surrender before we destroy you. Oh, that's nice of him.
He's like, hey, hang on a second. Who's that next to you? The dude with the ears like mine. So now I'm thinking maybe it's Spock they want. Like maybe they need him. Maybe they need his brain to run their Landru 5000 or whatever.
I didn't make anything of that. I just thought, oh, they just noticed Spock. But for some reason, I thought they already knew about him because they'd run into Romulans before.
Right. And remember, the last time that we ran into Romulans, it was the whole oh my God, Spock, they look like you. Like, let's be racist to Spock episode. Because they'd never seen them before. So now some time has passed.
So this shouldn't be a surprise.
No. And it seems like the Romulan intelligence is pretty good, but they didn't know that Vulcans were on board the Enterprise. Romulans notoriously are the chess masters of the galaxy. Everything they do is a game of chess, and Tal is already 3 moves ahead of Kirk. Kirk says that Starfleet has been notified, but Tal has intercepted that and knows that it'll take 3 weeks for them to even get the message to Starfleet, and then presumably another 3 weeks to get it back. And this leads me to more questions about subspace communications. So I'm imagining email, right? So the message is sent, it travels along some kind of medium, in this case, subspace, right?
Well,
not wires. And then it reaches its destination.
But doesn't it, I think, or I thought that there were little, I don't know what you call them, satellites.
Are there relay stations?
Relay stations. Thank you. That's
right?
exactly what.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then so does this travel in a straight line from the Enterprise to a relay station? Is it like FM radio and it radiates out into all directions until it hits a relay station? Does the message travel in a straight line? And if it does, what if there's a planet in the way? Does the message just bonk off a planet and that's blocked?
We need another scientist.
What if
we need an engineer or whoever, or what kind of scientist would be able to answer those questions?
Right? Could anybody between the Enterprise and the receiver or the relay station or whatever, can anybody catch that message and intercept it?
Yeah, don't know.
I went down a whole ass rabbit hole.
Were you stoned when you?
No, I wasn't. So we go down to the conference room to talk this out, but Kirk's still got a hair up his ass about something. KSM, Scotty, and a couple of background officers who don't get any lines are in the conference room.
They're just standing there with their arms crossed, looking all intimidating.
Spock's hypothesis is that the Romulans have developed a new cloaking device that can't be detected by our sensors, which would allow invasion attacks on the Federation like nothing they've ever imagined. Just picture you outside of Earth, ships just decloak a whole armada,
and we have there's nothing nobody can do because they didn't see them coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kirk figures that they've got 3 options: they can fight and be destroyed, or they can destroy the Enterprise, basically a self-destruct themselves in the process and keep her from getting in the Romulans' hands. Or they can surrender.
They don't talk about this, but run wasn't an option. Like,
No.
pop the clutch and throw that fucker into warp 9 and haul ass out of there.
Yeah. And Spock makes a good point here, and he kind of gets a little pissy with Kirk. He's like, well, we wouldn't have been in this situation if you hadn't gone, that kind of thing. He's like, you were the one who told us to go into the neutral zone, and we know good and well we shouldn't be there, so we wouldn't even be in this situation if it wasn't for that decision that you made.
You know how there are, like, most people at the office are just like, well, that's what the boss wants, I guess we'll just do that kind of people, right? But then there's usually like one person on the team who's willing to stick their neck out and push back against the boss. On that team, it's Spock.
Yep. But then McCoy apparently wasn't in the room. He didn't know.
McCoy's the guy that works in the satellite office, and he never knows what the fuck is going on at the main office because nobody tells him.
Why doesn't anybody tell me anything? And so he's like, wait, you went to the neutral zone? And he starts giving Kirk some shit, and Kirk is like, you know what? Dismiss. Get the fuck out.
So McCoy gets up and he's like,
okay, that's it. Screw you guys. I'm going home.
This just gave McCoy more reason to suspect something that's going on with Kirk, right? Like, as McCoy leaves, Uhura calls down. She's got the Romulans on the switchboard again, and now Tal's boss wants to talk to them, but not on the phone. Kirk and Spock will beam to the Romulan ship, and despite the Enterprise being the apparent aggressors here, they were the ones who violated the zone.
Right.
The Romulans have agreed to send 2 of their officers to the Enterprise as, like, exchange hostages. This is a bad idea, right?
Exchange program. Yeah.
This is a bad idea. You get a couple of Romulans on their ship, and they take down the schmuck working in the transporter room who's fucking half asleep and not paying attention. Then it's like game on for taking over the Enterprise.
Yeah. So Kirk is like, how can we trust you? But then Tal is like, Tal points out, they're like, you're the one who came into the zone and violated the big treaty thing that you're not supposed to be here. So how do we know we can trust you?
So the transport happens simultaneously. Kirk and Spock beam out as 2 Romulans beam in, and as soon as they've materialized, they pull their heaters. And Scotty just like puts his hands on his hips and kind of stares at them. You know, what's that meme? The guy that, you know who I'm talking about? He's like, this guy. He's a meme.
Oh, yeah.
A disappointed and angry cricket fan is a reaction image meme featuring the Pakistani cricket fan Mohammad Sareem Akhtar appearing annoyed and dismayed during a cricket match in mid-June 2019. The image of Akhtar standing with his hands on his hips is also commonly used as a reaction image to express disappointment or frustration in memes.
Like, really?
So that's what Scotty's doing. On the Romulan ship, Kirk and Spock are led into the commander's office where there's like this big plush black office chair turned backwards. And the big reveal is that the commander is a lady Romulan.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, I like seeing a woman in such a powerful position.
Yes.
The weird thing is we never get her name. We just call her Commander.
It's probably too complicated for humans to pronounce.
Yeah, because she's a Romulan. But yeah.
This is Joanne Linville, another Guiding Light alum.
She does look familiar.
She played Amy Sinclair in 1959 on Guiding Light, old school Guiding Light.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't watching that.
I wasn't there. I wasn't here. She was in a ton of stuff in the 50s that I've never heard of, but then Alfred Hitchcock, The Twilight Zone, Route 66, Bonanza, Gunsmoke, Hawaii Five-0, Charlie's Angels, even.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Dynasty, LA Law. So she was on a lot of stuff. Again, this commander makes a remark about Spock. She's like, you are the first officer, which again led me down the road of like, something's up with Spock. There's some reason that they keep pointing at him and that there's something about this. And that led me down the wrong fucking path.
I still didn't, at this point, I didn't get it. And I still didn't think anything of the Spock, but I also didn't think that Kirk was acting all that erratic, other than he went to the neutral zone. I really didn't think he was being, I thought he was just being stressed. So
Right.
I was like, I know this because they mentioned it, it has to play a part, but I didn't know how.
Yep. So she sends Spock to wait outside while she talks to Kirk first. They're trespassing, and she wants to know why. And Kirk makes up some bullshit about instrument failure in the navigation system, and they didn't know they'd crossed into the neutral zone until it was too late. And then the Romulan ships appeared, and they're like, "Fuck, we're in the DMZ." And
oh no, what do we do? She wasn't buying it.
No.
She's like, one of Starfleet's finest vessels, and you're telling me that you've got instrument failure. But he did. He doubled down on his lie.
He's like, "Lady, you should really watch Star Trek, the original series, because there's been a lot of shit go wrong up to this point. It's very, I'm lying my ass off, but it is very plausible that we would have instrument failure like that."
But she's, nope, you're lying. And she accuses him of espionage.
She's like, "Come on, Kirk, if one of our ships were all up in your territory right now, what would your people think? You'd think the same thing."
And she has a fucking point. I mean, what would they do? They would be all guns at the ready, ready to blow him out of the water. And yeah, so she's got a point.
So she calls Spock back in and moves a few more chess pieces. This is where we learn she's like surprised at seeing Spock because their intelligence didn't know about Vulcans on the Enterprise or whatever.
Yeah, by the way, those helmets look ridiculous. And I think I probably said this. I think
on the first Romulan episode. Yeah.
They look like some kind of nut that's cracked. You know what I mean? Like a nut, like an actual nut. It's just weird. They look ridiculous. That's the only thing I could think of, like a cracked nut shell.
Why is she so interested in Spock? Because Vulcans and Romulans don't just look similar. They're evolutionary branches on the same tree.
Oh, yeah, they're kissing cousins.
Yeah.
That's right.
And the camera cuts to a dude in a MAGA trucker cap, and he's like, "But if Romulans came from Vulcans, why are there still Vulcans?" The commander has heard rumors that Vulcans are honorable people and unable to lie, which Spock confirms is real. And she's like, "Great, then tell me why you're here. What's your mission? You can't lie. You have to tell me." Spock says, "I reserve the privilege of speaking only when it will not violate my honor as a Vulcan." Now, I didn't think like Vulcan honor was a big, like we talk about Klingons and their honorable Klingonness or whatever. I didn't think
Vulcans have no ego. So
Vulcans
honor
have no honor.
Well, I mean, they don't I feel like honor goes in hand in hand with ego, and Vulcans are all about logic and taking emotion out of it. So weird. Yeah.
But Spock's playing chess right back at her.
Mm-hmm.
So they trade moves a couple of times, and finally Spock says, "It is not a lie to keep the truth to oneself." And she's like, "Aha, check. So there is an unspoken truth here. And I just got to dig it out of your brain."
I gotcha.
So the commander threatens to put Kirk in that brain drain device from the planetarium to get the truth out of him, even if it leaves him a vegetable or dead.
"Well, Mr. Smarty Pants, it just so happens we are going on a field trip tomorrow."
Hooray! To where?
To the planetarium.
Planetarium said.
And Kirk's like, "No, there's nothing to say. I'm not saying anything more. I've said all I needed to say." But then Spock, come on. Spock says, "All right, I can't allow you to damage the captain any further." And he goes and kind of like bashes the captain a little. And he's like, the strain of command is worn heavily on him. He's not been himself. And Kirk is like, wait, what the fuck? That's a lie. And then he goes on to say, like, he's highly sensitive and he's emotional and he's lost the capacity for a rational reason. And he's like, shut up, man. Shut up, Spock. This just riles Kirk up so much. And he basically says that Kirk is not sane.
Yeah,
and
he explains this isn't a Federation spy mission, and that's obvious by how quickly and easily they were captured. No, he says, for the record, that Captain Kirk ordered the Enterprise across the DMZ on his own initiative and craving for glory. And that was like a oof. burn at
I
the
was
end.
like, okay. And so I was like, okay, there's something going on here because he's laying it on a little thick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. He would never do this.
I still didn't suspect it. I was just like, oh, the writers don't watch each other's shows or whatever. Damn.
No, this was like, I was like, there's something going on.
Uh-huh.
He and Spock are always so in step with each other, and now Spock is fucking wailing on him, on his character, and telling on him, and then Kirk is like calling him a traitor, a filthy traitor. So I'm like, okay, something's going on.
Mm-hmm. The commander calls up the Enterprise to read them their Miranda rights. Apparently, this isn't just any Romulan ship; it's their flagship. So it's flagship versus flagship. Is that like spy versus spy? She's personally charging Kirk with espionage, thanks to Spock's detailed testimony. And thanks to that testimony being that they were not under orders from Starfleet, the Enterprise will be taken back to the Romulan home base for processing, a couple of mug shots, and then they'll be released back to the Federation on their own recognizance. But they've taken Kirk into custody.
That's nice of her. Like, she's not going to hold the rest of the crew responsible because they were just following orders. But sounds like we're going to take your ship, and then you guys can just go ahead and go.
Yeah.
So it sounds like they like to take ships.
I did have the thought at this moment, like, hang on, is this part of a plan, like to get Kirk to Romulus or something?
I just, maybe they did want the ship. They want the ship so bad. And what I thought was maybe some Romulan person is impersonating Kirk, and that's why that was my first thought. Is like,
okay,
is he just not acting himself because it's not him?
Oh, like they've switched.
Yeah,
something.
they switched bodies or something.
Huh.
But
yeah, I could see that. Kind of like how we saw alternate universe, mirror universe Kirk, right? Being different in that way. Scotty orders the Romulans on the Enterprise to be taken to the brig, and then he calls up the Romulans and says, "Hell no, we won't go." And he threatens to blow up the damn ship along with as many Romulans as they can. And Kirk's like, "Attaboy, you hear that, human integrity?"
Yeah. Scotty says, "I'm just going to wait right here until the captain comes back, and I ain't doing shit."
So Kirk gets manhandled down to the Romulan brig. And alone at last, the commander and Spock get back to their chess game. She's like, a Vulcan living among humans, working with them? I would think the situation would be intolerable to you. Spock plops down on the couch and he's like, "Oh my God, you have no idea."
He did divulge that he's only half Vulcan and half human. So then she wonders, okay, well, where does your allegiance lie? With Vulcans, or I guess they call them Terrans or Earthlings or humans?
Because that's how it works. Like, you have to choose one half of yourself to be allegiant to.
Yeah, it's got to be tough being like a human. I don't want to use the word half-breed, but like a hybrid.
It would be like if you're an Italian American or whatever, and do you pledge your loyalty to Italy or to America? Like, oh, come the fuck on.
Well, I mean, I can imagine in our society there's some warring cultures that you might not want to. You know what I mean? You got to choose, like
a Pakistani Israeli Pakistani,
yeah, or a
Palestinian,
yeah, or something like that. Yeah.
She changes gears, asks about his 18-year service in Starfleet, asks about Kirk. Does Spock like him? Does he like his shipmates? And Spock's like, whether I like them or not is illogical. I'm at work. We don't have to be friends. We're at work.
Right.
And his duty is to just obey the captain. And chess game keeps continuing. She's like, yeah, but you're superior to all of them. You should have your own ship. Of course, we know that Spock's happy to do science and isn't at all interested in command. But the commander's like, is that really why? Or is it that no one has offered you a Vulcan, making this kind of very racially motivated? Is it because they haven't offered a Vulcan that opportunity? And Spock tries to explain that thing about like, look, there are thousands of workers in the company, but only a handful of managers, right? And it's just math. It's just statistical probabilities.
Everybody can't be a boss.
Not everybody can be the manager. Yeah. But she proposes to give him that exact opportunity. And I'm like, okay, what is she playing at now? this interest in Spock, I'm still trying to figure out like where it's going, but it
Yeah.
seems to just be like maybe a personal interest. Like she's just kind of into him.
Oh, well, I mean, I think she kind of likes, she likes that those pointy
She
ears.
likes that Vulcan D.
Yeah, she likes those pointy ears and that green blood. And she's just trying to like,
Do you think they have pointy D's too?
I mean, it makes sense.
Pointy ears.
I don't know. Why are we sitting here imagining Vulcan? I don't know. But it would make sense if it was pointy.
I'm somewhat surprised that statement you just made sort of insinuates that you haven't had some Spock fantasies, but okay.
I'll keep that to myself.
She says Spock must have his own ship, but he counters this chess move by accusing her of wanting a ship, namely my ship, the Enterprise. And she's like, well, yeah, it'd be a great achievement and it would open all kinds of doors for me and for you too, Spock.
I mean, you. Yeah.
So she's trying to entice him to like become a Romulan? Is that it?
She's trying to entice him to be power hungry like they are for some reason. She just, they're so opposite, even though they are cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like she's trying to like stroke his non-existent ego and try to get him to like want power and it's like, hey, look, you're capable of so much more. Why aren't you doing,
right.
that kind of thing?
Meanwhile, Kirk is being tossed into the brig and like an idiot makes a run at the door where there's obviously a force field, just like there would have been on the Enterprise, dumbass.
Right. Duh.
And he hits this force field hard and it throws him back.
It knocks him out to the point where the Romulans actually call back to the Enterprise and request Dr. McCoy to come and help them.
Why would they do this? What?
Yeah.
They have them there. He's prison. So what if he dies at that point? Like, whatever.
Yes. They've already pretty much accused him, judge, jury, and executioner. So what difference does it make? Why are you going to give? I mean, are they that civilized? Because I don't get the sense that they're civilized.
No.
But sure enough, Uhura gets a message and says to Dr. McCoy that he needs to get to the Romulan flagship immediately because there's been an injury. And McCoy's like, I don't make house calls. But it's Captain Kirk. So
he does make house calls for Captain Kirk.
Of course, yeah.
And now in the brig, there's a table that Kirk is lying on that wasn't there before.
It's the brig. And that's, hey, they do what they want.
McCoy beams in and he's like, please state the nature of the medical emergency already. So he scans Kirk with the salt shaker and he tells the guard that he'll live, but he'll need further attention. So the guard calls up the commander and the commander answers the call and decides she's going to come down to the brig herself and asks Spock to accompany her. So this whole chess game between the commander and Spock escalates again here in the hallway into sex games.
Oh yeah, it's turned into I really like you.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I forgot to tell you. I expect you for dinner. Yummy Vulcan cummies. Yum, 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 yum. Yum, yum, yum. Wait, no, what I meant to say is, will you join me for dinner? She like asks instead of tells. And Spock's like, well, I'm down, but can we lose the guards?
That's so funny. Like they just walk away. She dismisses them silently and they kind of walk away. And as they're going down the hallway, he turns down this corridor where that's being guarded by some Romulan guards. And she's like, oh, no, not that way.
The west wing of the beast's castle is strictly forbidden.
What's up there?
Where? There? Oh, nothing. Absolutely nothing of interest at all in the West Wing. Dusty, dull, very boring.
Ah, so that's the West Wing.
Oh, nice going.
So he's like, my bad. I'll obey your restrictions. And then she says that I hope that one day that there won't be a need for restrictions. Hint, hint. So maybe she's like thinking they could be a power couple or something.
Yeah. In this scene, she essentially says here, like, she hopes that Spock will become a loyal Romulan. This corridor is off limits to everyone except loyal Romulans. So she kind of hopes that Spock will defect and join her side. Again, this was so like, I wasn't clear. But in Spock speak, surprisingly, he's like, hey, anything can happen. So he's still playing along.
He's still playing along, but he's not giving very much. Like you said, it's very much chess. Don't show all your cards.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
So they arrive at the brig, and this episode had a lot of shaky handhold camera shots. Did you notice that? Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of like shaky handheld camera. So they get to the brig, and the commander asks McCoy, "Are you the doctor?" And he's like, "Well, I'm no Mbenga, but yeah."
At least he's not. At least he's not Vulcan. He's like, "I'm the chief medical officer, and the commander wants to know what Kirk's condition is." McCoy says, "Well, he's mentally depressed. He's physically weak. He's disoriented, and he's displaying feelings of persecution and rebellion." Which is all about. That's not his physical state, really.
Right.
But she says, but then by your own standards, he's not fully competent. And McCoy says, no, not now.
And he agrees that this mental incapacity could have affected Kirk earlier when he made the decision to cross into the DMZ.
Commanders tells Spock, the doctors confirmed what you said about your captain, that he was pretty much unfit. And now that means that you're the captain of the Enterprise. And are you ready to take that on? And Spock's like, I'm ready. But then McCoy's like, you son of a bitch. I don't believe it. There's no price you could pay to make him sell out.
This seems to be like what she's been playing at this whole time, getting Spock in command of the Enterprise for some reason.
Yep.
This whole scene has been shot with Kirk in the foreground, looking pretty doped up.
Yeah.
And this conversation is happening sort of behind him in the background. And finally, he's had enough. But he's so weak. And so he starts talking about Spock being a traitor again, and I'll kill you again. And he kind of staggers towards Spock very weakly. And Spock instinctively blocks him by putting his hand on Kirk's face.
Like a whole face palm.
like palming a basketball.
Right, but it's like a mind meld face palm, like all the fingertips on his whole face.
Kirk, like, again, some classic Shatner overacting in this episode. Kirk winces in pain and drops to the ground, and McCoy's like, "What the fuck did you do?" And Spock was like, "Look, I wasn't prepared for Kirk's attack," despite Kirk moving in slow-mo, basically, and everyone saw it coming, but okay.
Right.
He accidentally hit him with the Vulcan Death Grip. Vulcan Death Grip should be a band name.
Yes, I love it.
Like a death metal or something. Yeah.
Write it down. I want to see. We got to have a t-shirt, Vulcan Death Grip.
And it'll just be like a hand like that.
Yeah. But so McCoy, he's like, well, your instincts are still good because Kirk is dead.
Oh my God, they've killed
Captain James T. Kirk.
you bastards!
He's like, you're dead, Jim.
And then this is when, I was like, something's up because I know for full well he's not fucking dead.
Nope, there's another episode next week. He can't possibly be dead. After the break, for some reason, apparently they've allowed McCoy to take Kirk's body back to the Enterprise. And so he's got him on a biobed. Chapel comes in and Kirk's eyes shoot open and the heart monitor starts making noise and Chapel freaks the fuck out. This was like jump scare freak out.
Hell yeah, he's supposed to be dead. And then she calls for McCoy and McCoy comes back in and she's like, well, he was dead. Their doctor certified that he was dead. Well, he's like, okay, now that you know, hand me the physio stimulator or something. And Chapel's like, okay, what the fuck's going on? So basically, McCoy fesses up and he says that Spock gave him a nerve pinch to simulate death. So he wasn't actually dead. And Chapel's like, oh, I get it. You guys were playing around and you had a plan all along. And now Spock isn't a traitor. So she's pretty happy about that.
Real happy that Spock's not a traitor.
Of course.
That would have really fucked up her masturbatory fantasies of him.
Right.
So the plan all along has been to keep the Enterprise and the Federation off the hook. So if shit went sideways, then Kirk would take the fall. This would all be his responsibility.
But they didn't let anyone else in on it. they didn't let McCoy in on it until he got over to the Romulan ship and got Kirk alone, and then they explained it to him. So, I mean, like, why didn't you let the 4 top officers, Scotty, McCoy,
Right.
everybody should be in on it, so it would have run smoother.
This is a need-to-know basis, and they weren't told until they needed to know, I guess.
Kirk pops up on the table, and he's like, man, I feel like my neck's been twisted off. And McCoy says, that's the Vulcan death grip for you. And of course, that's when we learn there really isn't a such thing as the Vulcan death grip. But the Romulans don't know that, which is surprising too, because
their intel seems to be really good.
Well, then also they're related to each other. So surely they know like all those types of physiological things that you can do to people. But anyway.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't know their history. Maybe that was a genetic mutation in their offshoot that they don't have, because we never see Romulans do any of that finger banging shit.
That's true. That's true.
So maybe that's something that was, evolved out of them for some reason. For perhaps, I can't wait till next week's episode when we have Dr. Noor on to talk about all this shit. But
I didn't think about that.
Leaving Vulcan and landing on a new planet, Romulus and Remus and whatever, like, there would have been evolutionary adaptations to this new environment. Maybe that was one of them.
Yeah, come to think of it, I never see them do a mind meld. They don't do.
They don't do any finger stuff.
No finger stuff. They're so boring. Oh my God.
So the last thing Kirk says before we cut away is that he wants McCoy to prep for surgery. Some time passes, and McCoy calls up Scotty on the bridge and asks him to come to sickbay. And this takes some convincing, because Scotty's like, we're surrounded by Romulans. I can't leave the bridge right now. So Scotty comes ripping into sickbay, demanding explanations. But he stops short upon coming face to face with Kirk, cosplaying as a Romulan.
Get a life.
Kirk seemed to enjoy being in the ears and the eyebrows.
Yeah, he did. Scotty's like, well, you look like the devil himself, but at least you're alive. What the hell is going on around here? Kirk's like, hey, listen, those Romulans, the ones still in the brig, I'm gonna need a uniform. And Scotty's face lights up like, oh yeah, I get to go fuck up some Romulans.
Yeah, he's like, it's gonna be a pleasure. Meanwhile, back at the commander's quarters, it's Spock's turn to finally romance the girl. The commander's like kind of feeding him. She's had some special dishes prepared for him, and she pours him some basically some blue raspberry Kool-Aid. And they toast each other. I mean, they're just, the two of them, it's just yuck.
So she's made these special Vulcan dishes for dinner, and Spock's like, well, I'm sure it's better than that crap we eat on the Enterprise. Fucking cheeseburgers and
what is that fruit that
cubes?
Color cubes.
A powerful recruiting tactic, Commander. And she's like, there's more where that came from. And she holds up this tall shot glass of alcohol, and Spock's like, what is it? And the commander looks it over, kind of takes a whiff, and says, it is blue. Spock takes the glass, and they both take a drink. Now, why would you trust this is the royal tester, right? Like, you're on an alien ship and they offer you shit to eat and drink? No. Name, rank, and serial number, motherfucker.
Spock is feeling like he's got her where he wants her.
Yeah.
He's pretty confident she's not going to do anything to him, at least nothing that he doesn't want to do.
Is it canon at this point that alcohol doesn't really affect Vulcans?
I don't know.
Is that something that we've seen before? I can't remember. But like, that was my thought here, was like, oh man, he's going to get her trashed and it's not going to bother him at all. And so then he has an advantage. Back on the Enterprise, McCoy's in the transporter room, fuming and pacing around. They've been waiting for Spock to send a signal with coordinates, but Spock's obviously otherwise entangled. So Kirk decides to transport over anyway. And he's just like, pick a spot, make sure it's not inside a bulkhead. Just beam me somewhere. Apparently, the uniform Kirk stole is a Centurion. And just as he materializes, a Romulan officer comes around the corner and starts giving him shit for being in an unauthorized area or something. But Kirk says, hey, look, I just escaped from the Federation vessel and I need to talk to Subcommander, like, right now. Where's he at? And the Romulan tells Romkirk that Tal is in a control central, and Romkirk promises to speak highly of him and sends him on his way. Back in the commander's quarters, she's pouring out orange drinks now. Again, don't mix your liquors.
Tang. We switched from blue Kool-Aid to Tang.
And Spock's on the couch, diving into a charcuterie board. Finally, the commander makes her offer clearly. A place for Spock with her, Romulan women aren't like Vulcan women, which I assume means they like it in the ass. They do butt stuff. Is that?
Finger stuff, butt stuff. I don't know. Apparently, though, they're not dedicated to pure logic and the sterility of non-emotion.
So they get freaky deaky.
Yes. Savage, even.
Okay. If you could fuck any alien species, which alien species would you fuck?
Oh, gosh.
Klingons got 2 dicks. We've talked about that before. Apparently, Vulcans are into some kinky shit. Or Romulans are into some kinky shit.
Klingons are also into some kinky shit and can break your bones if you're not strong enough. So fuck that. I can't even imagine Spock like on top of you saying, "Oh yeah, no." I mean,
oh God!
The most he would get is, "Oh, that's interesting."
Oh God!
I think I'm correct there. I'm crying. Interesting indeed.
Yeah, fascinating.
While he's going at it, you're not going to get a whole lot. Romulans, I don't know.
I feel like I could get with a freaky Romulan. I could do some. Yeah, I could do some freaky shit.
Yeah, because I mean they're smart and they look like Vulcans, but they have a little bit more passion. Yeah,
Maybe they're into like torture porn or something.
Yeah.
God. Where the fuck were we?
She was saying that
they like it in the butt. So
they're savage and they like other pleasant things.
Spock's like, fascinating. I was not aware of that aspect of Romulan society. Neither were we.
Neither were we, yeah.
She says that as a Vulcan, he would study it, but as a human, he could appreciate it. So kind of his two halves, both succeeding in a place like this. And Spock, whose bulge is struggling against his pants now, leans in and says, "Oh, believe me, I appreciate it." Boing.
One step to making this occasion complete is that he is going to need to lead a small party of Romulans aboard the Enterprise, where he's going to take his rightful place as commander, and then you're going to take the ship to the Romulan port with my flagship at its side. And Spock is like, yeah, but not right this minute, right?
We can bang first, right?
Yeah. And I'm wondering, I'm assuming he was just stalling.
Yeah, he's buying time, right?
But maybe he was just kind of insinuating, hey,
let's
you
go
and
bang.
I.
Yeah,
let's go bang.
Yeah, it's absolutely what I got from that. And this was, I don't really remember. Maybe this was the moment that I was kind of like, oh, hang on. This Spock is really acting weird too. Like, yeah, we knew they introduced Kirk as acting weird. This is not Spock. Something's funky's going on here because he's like flirting back.
Yeah.
Hardcore. Yep. He's like, I have a wife back on Vulcan, but she doesn't need to know. No, they never got married.
Yep, they never did get married. Commander's like, I do have a first name, and
it's OSCAR.
Baloney. Well, apparently it's so special that she had to whisper it in his ear, or she couldn't pronounce it. Or I think
is that canon too? I feel like we've heard Vulcan names are too difficult to pronounce, and so that's why they don't say them. But
yeah, and that's why we don't know what Spock's last name is or first name. Is Spock his first name or his last name?
I don't know. I think it's like Madonna.
But it's that one
Cher.
On that one episode where this woman had asked him what his rest of his name was, and he's like, you couldn't pronounce it. So.
Okay, technically Spock is his last name. His full name is Spock. Here, I'll send you that in the thing too.
Did you find his first name? Because we looked for that.
Yeah. I just Googled it.
All right, let's see.
It was revealed on Strange New Worlds.
Shing. Oh.
Yeah. God bless you.
Guy. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So she tells him her name, and he just says how rare and how beautiful, but so incongruous when spoken by a soldier.
She's like, tee-hee, why don't I go slip into something more comfortable?
Mm-hmm. She leaves the room, and then Spock takes that moment to pull out his communicator and call Captain Kirk.
He's too late, though. Rom Kirk is already on board, and Spock tells him that the cloaking device is somewhere near the commander's quarters, but it's closely guarded. This was a big fucking blunder because on the Romulan bridge, they've picked up this call from inside the ship and are triangulating its source.
The call is coming from inside the ship.
So the plan is Kirk's going after the cloaking device. Spock's going to have to find his way back to the Enterprise without attracting attention. But Spock's quite busy at the moment as the Romulan commander comes back in, and Spock has to like quickly hang up the phone and hide it as she walks in. He's, oh shit.
Yep, and she didn't even see him. She's singularly focused right now.
Yeah, she slinks in now this very 60s, 70s looking form-fitting dress, and they exchange some more flirtations until Spock holds up the Vulcan gang sign, and she returns it, and then he starts finger-banging her.
They're finger-banging all over her face, all over his... She's got her fingers all over his face, and I'm like, well, this is weird. I feel weird watching this.
So we knew that that's how Vulcans do it, but were Romulans, does she get the same like feels that he gets when they finger bang like that?
Gotta be something similar, you know. They're just throwing right now. She's throwing up gang signs and she's going straight out of Romulus.
Easy as his name and the boys coming
Straight out of Romulus.
Cut to Kirk snooping around the hallways, and he turns that same corner that Spock did earlier. And the guard is still there. And he's like, whoa, Centurion, I don't recognize you. Do you have clearance to be in here? And Rob Kirk waves his hand and says, these are not the droids you're looking for.
He does the, hey, look over there, and chops him.
Karate chop, takes him down. Spock and the commander are fingering each other's faces, and she's about to come when Tal knocks on the door. And she's like, didn't you see the underwear hanging on the doorknob?
The sock? I mean, come on. But sure enough, but Tal's like, this is important. He says that they've intercepted the alien transmission. Well, she's like, okay, fine. We'll just locate its source. Leave me the fuck alone. Well, we have, Commander, and it's in this room. Spock comes from behind the curtain, and they kind of figure it out that it's him.
She's like, fuck the cloaking device.
She's like, oh, we were just about to bang, too.
Kirk is able to access the room with the cloaking device, which is like, again, reused pieces of Nomad and Landru and M5 and Beta 5. So Rom Kirk is taken by surprise by a Romulan with a heater. And again, Kirk tries the old, there's an enemy spy aboard, we gotta find him. Says he'll be after the cloaking device, and the Romulan's eyes give away the actual location of which device in that room is the cloaking device.
Nice.
So that was a good trick. He orders Rom Kirk to drop his heater, which he does, but as the Romulan goes to pick it up, Rom Kirk kicks the heater out of his hand and then lands a kick to the head that knocks him out.
And then he grabs the big glow-thicking orb. Here we are with another orb, glowing orb with something sticking out of it. He grabs it and then calls up to Scotty to energize, and he gets out of the room just in time.
So Kirk and the Nomad Ru 5 cloaking device appear on the transporter pad, and Rom Kirk gives Scotty 15 minutes to figure out how to hook up the cloaking device to the Enterprise, and we'll just have to hope Spock can find his way back.
And that is why you got to let your engineer into
what you're doing.
Because,
he could have been prepping. Yeah.
Right. 15 minutes. That's so unfair.
The commander and her squad roll up to find the cloaking device gone, and she orders a full search of all decks, which Tal and the guards set off to do. But Spock's like, you're not going to find it, you know? And she's like, well, why would you do this to me? We were just about to bang. Like, what are you that you could do this to me? And Spock's like, I'm a man. It's kind of our thing.
But also, I'm the first officer of the motherfucking Enterprise. I think she realizes here that she's been played the whole time.
She is woman scorned now, and that results in a slap to Spock's face. And she's like, what the fuck? We fingered. Doesn't that mean anything to you? And all Spock says is, what is your present form of execution? He knows he's going to be killed as a spy. Scotty's installing the Nomad Roof 5 while Kirk's captain's log plays. Remember earlier how they said the rest of the crew had to believe that Kirk was dead? Yeah, I forgot all about that until this very moment. And also earlier, how did they get Kirk from sickbay to the transporter room in Romulan cosplay without some crew person seeing?
Yeah.
They got to clear the halls or something, and doesn't that raise some red flags?
They got secret. Maybe he slid down the Jeffrey Jeep. I have no idea. Those are some holes.
Anyway, Kirk's back in Starfleet uniform, but still with the Romulan makeup, and he rolls onto the bridge, surprising everyone that he's alive. Chekhov's like, what the hell happened to your ears? Spock's still over there, and we got to find him. Point of order. Kirk tells them to scan for Spock's body readings and isolate them.
This is new.
Yeah, can they do that? Can they beam him back this way? Or I thought, didn't we need a communicator signal?
You have to have a Yeah. Now it sounds like they're doing these biosigns.
Yeah.
And everybody has a different biosign.
And that's kind of what it becomes in Future Trek, which I think is, an advancement in the technology. It's better, obviously, that you should just be able to identify an individual based on your scan and then grab that one and beam it up.
Yeah.
Back on the Romulan flagship, the commander sends Tal away. There are preparations to be made. Boarding the Enterprise will begin soon, and if they resist, they'll be destroyed. So the commander tells Spock, finally answering his question, execution is both painful and unpleasant, but he'll probably spend some time being tortured at Guantanamo first.
Spock says something like, I demand the right of statement first. Is that just basically...
Spock has been studying for the Romulan bar exam.
Apparently. Is it like to say, this is my side of the story?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, that'll give him some time, like 20 minutes or so, to record the statement, buying Kirk some time to finish the mission. She says it will take them less time to find whoever stole the cloaking device, so Spock won't die alone. She flips on the tape recorder, and Spock starts his statement. My crime is sabotage. I freely admit my guilt. And then it kind of cut away to Scotty hooking up the serial cables to the Nomad Roof 5. And then Spock continues, the oath I swore as a Starfleet officer is both specific and binding. As long as I wear the uniform, my duty is to protect the security of the Federation. He's just clearing time to just...
Yeah, he's just rambling on.
Yeah.
How he's so guilty and yeah, I did it, I betrayed you. I carried out my duty, all that stuff.
Obviously, this is not what the commander wants to hear, and she interrupts him, like, you're just stating the obvious. But lawyer Spock reminds her that there is no regulation regarding the content of his statement. He can read from the phone book if he wants to. Back on the Enterprise, Chekhov is scanning for Spock, but Vulcan and Romulan life signs are almost identical, just a slight difference between them, and then Chekhov isolates Spock's signal, and Kirk says to have the transporter room beam him aboard, so they don't need a communicator signal now, and we'll see if that continues, who knows.
Yeah, so they start beaming him aboard. The commander hears the noises of the transporter. I guess it makes a noise when someone's about to beam up.
I guess.
So she goes over and grabs and puts her arms around him so that she's basically in that transporter field too. And she ends up being beamed aboard with him.
Uhura reports the transport is successful and Kirk orders them away at Warp 9. The Romulan subcommander, of course, orders pursuit, weapons hot. Unfortunately, the cloaking device now on the Enterprise still isn't working. It's running Mac OS and the Enterprise is on Windows. And
it's not compatible.
And nary the two shall ever speak.
No, never.
Spock steps off the elevator with the commander and a couple of red shirts, and she gives him credit for getting this far, but assures that they'll all soon be dead. Now, if a starship is traveling at warp 9, we know that there is a maximum speed at which a starship can travel. The Romulans don't have anything faster than that, right? It's a limit of physics. So they would just chase each other at the same distance indefinitely until someone's engine started to fail, right?
Right.
We need a scientist.
We need an engineer. That's what we need.
That's what we need. Kirk calls up Tal on Zoom and announces that the commander is aboard, but the commander shouts an order to destroy the Enterprise, even with her on it. The Romulans are bearing down on the Enterprise somehow. Again, I guess they can go faster than the Enterprise. Anyway, there's like 12 seconds until the Romulans are close enough to fire on them. And just at the last minute, Scotty gets the cloaking device turned on, and the Enterprise fades away.
And then they kind of come about and go to the side of them so that the Romulans will continue in that straight path. And if they start shooting, which they do, they start shooting. And of course, the Enterprise is looking at them from the side saying, yeah, miss me. But of course, they can't see them.
Okay, I have another similar question to the sending a subspace message. This question is about those phaser beams and torpedoes. Let's say we fire at the Enterprise, as they tried to do, but it doesn't hit a target. Does the phaser beam just travel on indefinitely? Does it travel in a straight line until it hits something? Like, do torpedoes automatically detonate after a certain time, or will it just fly through space until it hits something?
Or does it just dissipate? Because it's energy, I assume.
The phaser blast, I would believe, but the torpedo is a physical object.
Oh, yeah. So, I've seen those shows like Mythbusters where they test with a gun and a bullet, but because we're dealing with Earth atmosphere, Earth gravity and all that.
Right.
So it goes straight and then eventually it kind of curves and goes down, but there's nothing.
So,
that's a good question.
Okay. So then we fire the photon torpedo and it goes through a star system. It would then be affected by the gravitational forces of the bodies in that star system.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't travel in a straight line until it hits something necessarily. It would be until it's affected by some other force.
It starts orbiting.
It
starts orbiting.
It could end up orbiting a planet. It could end up destroying a planet, is my point.
Right. Yeah. I think it would probably lose momentum because it'll be pulled into some sort of orbit. Like, I'm making this shit up. I don't know, but I think that's an excellent question. So we need Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, astrophysicist. Something. They did at least fill one potential plot hole here. Spock says that the commander confirmed that Romulans can't track their own cloaking devices, which seems like a big flaw in the system.
Big miss, yeah.
Yeah. Kirk offers to drop her off at the nearest Federation outpost, and the commander says, this is very generous, given that if their roles were reversed, they would kill.
She'd kill you.
Be killed, yeah. And she asks to be taken to the brig because that's where the prisoners go. And Kirk's like, oh, honey, that's not how humans do it. Actually, Mr. Spock will escort you to your quarters. What you two do there is your business, not mine.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk understands.
He's trying to get his boy's dick wet. Yeah.
You know how it is.
He's the wingman. He's looking out for his buddy.
Totes wingman. I swear.
Spock and the commander get back on the turbo lift, and Spock's like, hey, I'm really sorry about that whole, you being made an unwilling passenger here thing. That was totally not our plan. We just wanted the cloaking device. That was really it. And she's like, the Federation wanted the cloaking device. What do you want, Spock?
No.
And she pulls down at her neckline to reveal a little more cleavage. Spock says he wants to play a little more flirting finger chess. And he says, the cloaking device was my only interest when I boarded your ship, but those fingers, my God.
Oh my.
So are Vulcans into fingers like some people are into feet? Is that a hand thing?
It's a hand.
I'm sure there's hand fetishes
it's a finger
too.
fetish. Oh yeah, there is.
Yeah.
There's a fetish for everything. Is it just a fetish, or is it just how they
Or is that just right? Is that just what they're attracted to? Like we developed.
Maybe they don't have a dick. Maybe they have fingers. That's all they got.
Oh. Hey,
I don't know.
Hey Siri, what does a Vulcan penis look like?
Oh my God.
Will that trigger everyone's phones? I hope it does, because now that's in your search history. The commander mentions that they'll be able to quickly figure out how to detect their own cloaking device, so stealing it will have been pointless. And Spock agrees that military secrets are the most fleeting of all. He says, I hope that you and I exchange something a little more permanent. And the commander pulls up the skirt on her dress and slides her underwear down, and there's a close-up of her bush with like these green oozing bumps all over her, and she's like, oh, you definitely exchanged something more permanent, Spock.
Oh my God.
Damn, Spock, wrap it up, my guy.
I know, those fingers are deadly. I mean, I think he kind of liked her, respected her a little bit, and was definitely an attraction there.
Yeah. You don't think it was all just part of the game, part of the mission, part of the play?
Maybe it was initially, but I think he started to like, okay, she's formidable. She's, that's hot.
Yeah. Yeah. As they step out into the hallway, she promises this whole torrid affair will be their dirty little secret, which is now on our Spotify playlist. Dirty little secret? No?
Dirty little secret. Oh, that song. My dirty little secret.
Yeah, that's it. The button on this episode, on the bridge, they're entering the DMZ again, and Bones calls up to have Kirk report to surgery again. Says it's time to bob his ears.
Like an animal, like a cat or whatever.
Bob your tail. And Spock walks up during this call, and he's like, Captain, please go. Somehow they do not look as aesthetically agreeable on humans.
Yeah.
McCoy's like, well, are you coming, or do you want to go through life looking like your first officer? And Kirk's like, oh, I'm on my way. I'll be right there. Fuckers.
I know. I swear.
What's wrong with the ears?
It's hot.
And we're left with an uncomfortable glance from Kirk to Spock as he touches his Romulan ear before stepping into the turbo lift. Spock raises an eyebrow, and the camera pulls back to reveal Uhura down at the con, laughing it up with Sulu and Chekhov. All's well that ends well, I guess.
And they got a cloaking device out of it. But I swear,
did we ever do anything with this cloaking device?
No, that's the thing. Is we stole it, but what did we ever? We didn't really incorporate that into any future stuff. Like even in TNG, they didn't. I mean,
no. Well, okay. So just how established is the treaty that they reference? They don't name it, but I think isn't like the Treaty of Algernon or some shit that was the one where they couldn't have cloaking technology. And is that in effect? Is that the treaty that prevents? It allows Klingons and Romulans to have cloaking devices, but is that the thing that prevented the Federation from developing cloaking technology? And why would the Federation have signed that agreement anyway? Like to end a war, I guess. But like, what's the Treaty of Algernon? Is Algernon a Star Wars planet or a Star Trek planet?
No. You're right. It's a treaty signed between the United Federation of Planets and the Romulan Star Empire in 2311, following events of the Tomed incident.
What's that?
Let's see. The treaty reinforced and redefined the Romulan neutral zone. Any violations of that, a breach of that zone would be considered an act of war. An exception to the treaty allowed for limited supervised use of at least one cloaking device on loan from the Romulans. Operation of the cloaking device had to be limited to the Gamma Quadrant.
So from what I can tell, timeline-wise, the Treaty of Algernon is probably the treaty that we're talking about here. They referenced it in Enterprise. So the Earth-Romulan War would have happened prior to these events. The current Star Trek timeline, the Earth-Romulan War is in the past. The Treaty of Algernon was signed, and so the Federation can't develop cloaking technology. My next question is, so that would have been between the events of our first Romulan episode and this one, though? Because when we first met the Romulans, everybody was like, oh, we've never seen a Romulan before. We have no idea what they look like.
Oh, they look just like Vulcans.
But there was a war and a treaty signed?
Apparently.
With someone you never saw. Something's not adding up.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm sure glad that's over with.
I'm happy the affair is over.
Me too.
A most annoying, emotional episode.
Yeah, but I learned something today.
When dreams become more important than reality, you give up travel, building, creating.
One jealous god, if all this makes a god.
By sparing your helpless enemy, who surely would have destroyed you, you demonstrated the advanced trait of mercy.
Frankly, I was rather dismayed by your use of the term half-breed. You must admit, it is an unsophisticated expression.
This was about, espionage, subterfuge, but I find it interesting. If someone had done that to the Enterprise.
Yeah.
It's just surprising that the Federation was supposed to be so good and just, and then they go and they
do stuff like this.
Steal it.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. No,
I don't know if that's a humanist thing, but it's a questionable.
It is. It's an ethical question, right? Is it okay to do a thing that you know is wrong for a specific positive outcome? Really, if you boil it down to, a generic wording, is it okay to violate your conscience, to violate your values, to do something that you would otherwise say is wrong if it benefits you?
But then, if so, then you have to also look at the motivation when someone does it to you. So if
right.
The Romulans had done it to them, I don't know that the Federation would have.
They wouldn't have been like, oh, well, of course you're just doing this because, it's okay to violate your values. Right. No, they would have been pissed.
Yeah, they didn't say, oh, tell me a reason behind this. What do you need it for? And I still don't understand why we stole it. Why did they steal it?
Yeah, because then we don't go do anything with it.
Right. So they didn't make it clear what their motivation was for stealing the cloaking device other than we're stealing it.
Right.
And I think they violated their own principles in a way. I don't know.
I think because they're not necessarily at war, maybe Cold War, right? Because they have the DMZ and they're a snap away from fucking each other up again anytime they interact with each other. So the question, I guess, that I grappled with was specifically in times of war, then, is it okay to violate, we send kids off to fight wars all over this planet. And we don't sit them down and tell them, hey, you're going to kill innocent people. And that's okay because it's war and that's different. That value is different because of this particular thing that's going on. Either killing is wrong or it's not. Then you have this little gray area in between where well, it's okay to kill if you're being attacked by someone, right? You can defend yourself, and if you kill them, then that's okay. And that's when you get into that gray ethical question. And I think that in this particular instance, they're arguing in favor of you can do things because war that you wouldn't normally do.
But the thing is, they weren't at war.
Right.
And
Cold War, maybe.
So crossing into the neutral zone, into the Romulan, could have been seen as an act of war.
Oh, yes.
So they risked that just to get some tech. And, I just think it was underhanded and it was real dirty and not Federation-like.
Right. I feel it was wrong to do it, but I feel like the episode is making the case that it's okay. And I don't like that.
I don't either.
Did anybody die in this episode?
No, not really.
No. Right. We'll just skip that part then.
No spitting bars and no rest in peace. Maybe to Spock's boner. But that's about it.
Let's get right to business.
Fine, I'm authorized to pay an equitable price. Federation has invested a great deal of money in our training. They're about due for a small return.
Listen, we pay off percentages. We're entitled to a little service for our money, huh?
Is this the way your citizens do business? Their right of petition?
They pay their percentages and the boss takes care of them.
Is there anything else?
there are a lot of great ways to support Humanist Trek. One of the free ways to do that is to leave a rating and review wherever you listen to the show. You can rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, especially. Like, not that I'm in particular to any player or whatnot, but the algorithm loves ratings and reviews, and that helps more people find us. So that would be super helpful. And of course, one of the best ways to support us is to give us some of your Gold Press Latinum by becoming a patron of the show. We want to thank all of our patrons. We especially want to thank our founding admirals. Special thanks to Russell, Ali, Peter, Sarah, and Sherry.
Thank you, patrons.
Thanks, patrons. Patrons get early access to every episode, special merch, a growing catalog of bonus content like personal logs and the very short Treks episodes. So there's lots of great reasons to join our fleet. Head on over to patreon.com/humanisttrek and pledge as little as $3 a month. It does make a big difference, and it means a lot to us both.
I assume you're loitering around here to learn what efficiency rating I plan to give your cadets.
Trainees, to the briefing room. Is that all you gotta say? What about my performance?
Aren't you dead?
I don't believe this was a fair test of my command abilities. There was no way to win.
There's no correct resolution. It's a test of character.
Now, what is that supposed to mean?
I am understandably curious.
May I ask you a question?
Who's been holding up the damn elevator?
All right, let's bring Becca back for the exciting answer to last week's Starfleet Academy Cadet Challenge for the Enterprise incident. Last time on Humanist Trek, you asked us.
This was the last live-action appearance of the Romulans in the Star Trek franchise for quite a while. How many years passed between this appearance and the next? Bonus point if you can tell me the name of the Star Trek TNG episode the Romulans appear in.
Well, now that I've Googled, I think the episode is The Neutral Zone. Is it The Neutral Zone? Okay, but I don't get the point. That sucks.
Nope.
And for the years, Allie, you said 20?
She did.
2021.
And I said 19.
Yep. Allie was right.
What?
20 years.
Correct.
Woohoo!
So Allie got a point.
Yay! I finally got a point all by myself.
Yay! And yeah, so you gained a little ground this week. Not much, but
where the hell are we anyway? Let me look that up. We don't do this very often. Let's see. I have myself at 34 and a half.
There's a way
and
to
Allie
go
at
back and
28 and a half.
Retroactively count it.
If you want to listen to all the episodes again. We need an intern. Next week, we'll be reviewing Star Trek: The Original Series, Season 3, Episode 3, The Paradise Syndrome. Kirk loses his memory and begins a new life in a native village. Next week, we'll also be joined by a very special guest, Dr. Mohammed Noor, the Bio-Trekkie himself, and he's gracious enough to join us this week for this dumb quiz game that we play. Peek behind the pod, we've already watched this episode, so we kind of know what it's about, and Becca's probably going to ask something that is not even at all related to the episode. What is our question for the Paradise Syndrome?
The lake featured in this episode is the Franklin Reservoir above Los Angeles. It has been featured in hundreds of westerns and police shows. But what is it most famous for?
What?
Every now and then I have to throw you something that has nothing to do with Trek.
Franklin Reservoir is famous for something non-Trek? How would we know this?
Or a movie or another show.
Or just like the largest reservoir in California.
Oh my goodness.
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
It is famous for industry related.
Okay, so another movie or TV show or something.
It was in Robin Hood Men in Tights.
And I know that based on the demographic of age in the room,
yes,
you should all have been very familiar with this, and you're going to kick yourself when you don't know these.
Really?
Oh.
All right. Something old.
I'm trying to think of a movie that had a lake. A familiar lake.
Yeah, nothing's jumping to mind.
No.
Man, see, this is how she is.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
The Parent Trap. That's what I'm going to go with. The Parent Trap.
The Blue Lagoon, you know that movie. Maybe it wasn't a desert island, it was the reservoir. I don't know. I have no idea.
All right, we've locked in our answers. If you want to play along, no cheating, no Googling, set a course for your nearest social media app and share out this episode. Include your answer, include the hashtag Starfleet Challenge, and we'll pick out a favorite to be the winner. And you'll win your very own Paradise Planet. No, we're not selling Mormonism.
Does the favorite have to be correct, or can it just be favorite?
No, it doesn't. It can be the funniest. It can be whichever one we like. It's very subjective.
I love it.
Next time on Humanist Trek, Star Trek, the original series, Season 3, Episode 3, The Paradise Syndrome.
Live long and prosper.
Kapla.
Humanist Trek is available wherever you replicate your podcasts. Follow us on all the social medias at Humanist Trek. Become a patron at patreon.com/humanisttrek. Open hailing frequencies to podcast@humanisttrek.com and visit our website, humanisttrek.com. Humanist Trek is a production of Sarah Austin Media.